Hi, I thought I would create a small or short summary of the reply I put on the blog post, so that way no one had to read the long post that I wrote. But one, I think it's hard to anticipate what the FAA will do since their decisions are partly political and pragmatic. So the pragmatism wants us to avoid problems and increase safety, but the politics do boil down to what happens in worst case scenario. So I take the balloons as the worst case scenario since balloons have the least amount of maneuverability and balloons do collide with balloons currently. So balloons don't have the ability to change their control or have positive control over their direction and their altitude. They do the best they can using weather. ADSB provides weather to help them deal with those problems, and also gives them a way to identify themselves to other aircraft, because other aircraft actually bear the responsibility of avoiding the balloons in most cases. The rules are kind of like, if you see us, don't hit us, but the shorthand of that, which is probably more formally explained by the FAA, is the least maneuverable aircraft needs to be yielded to, or fixed-wing aircraft will yield to a helicopter. You might think, because a helicopter can move up and down, left and right, but that's not actually the case. The helicopter will yield to the fixed-wing aircraft. So that way, the fixed-wing aircraft, which is normally carrying passengers and can normally only keep flying straight, will have to be allowed to continue flying because a helicopter can stop in midair and wait. So stopping and waiting is a form of safety to allow a lesser maneuverable aircraft to continue along its path. So some of these things are not intuitive, which is why I wanted to follow up with some of the aviation professionals that I know and get their insights and understand the nature of how it is now, because in the event that there is a collision, the drone will be blamed with public opinion, and that will definitely shape what the FAA does, regardless of how much the autonomous vehicle did to avoid the collision. So if we look at some of the rules that are in place already that govern boating, the way the government operates in aviation or in our airspace, the way we control aircraft, we'll probably see that there's some lessons learned already, but we can't solve all of these circumstances because we're not subject to all these circumstances, and we're not asking for a blanket permission to operate in all airspace as all aviation does. It's most likely going to be incremental and pragmatic the way the FAA currently works, and they'll allow us to work in certain environments under certain conditions, and then once we prove that we have a competency in that area, then it'll be expanded. But the worst case, I think, needs to be solved first, which is balloons and aviation. It's not too much to ask them to install ADSB, but without that, they are subject to the same risk that they currently incur, which is collision with other like aircraft. So I'll try to be back with more when I get more information, and thanks for everyone to contributing to this conversation.